overjoyed as well. But thanks for coming out tonight. I'm Jamie Hess. I'm the chair of the New London Energy Committee, and I'm joined here by three of my fellow committee members. On my left, Lisa Hess and Tim Parody, and on my right at the end, David Parody, and in between us is Joelle and Courtney from the town of Enfield, which launched their community power program almost exactly a year ago. And Joellen is here to give us some of Enfield's experience with community power and help us understand what to expect here in New London when our community power program launches just over a month from now. So what you're looking at up on the screen is the website for New London Community Power. And there's a lot of information on there that you can browse through, but we're here to give you a brief summary, and then I hope you all brought lots of questions, and hopefully we can answer at least a few of them. So the reason that community power is coming to New London is because, and Joellen, feel free to jump in if I say anything that isn't quite accurate. But something like 2 or 3 years ago, a statewide nonprofit was formed called the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire to promote this concept of nonprofit community power across the state and to enable individual cities and towns to launch their own programs without having to invest in a lot of bureaucracy and overhead. So the statewide nonprofit handles all the nuts and bolts and mechanics of administering the program, and the five of us sitting up here are all volunteers who don't get paid to do anything that we do. We just do it because we believe in it, and it's fun to help folks save money. I don't think anybody would complain about that. So after months and months of hard work, most of it unpaid, the first community power programs in New Hampshire launched was it March or April, Joellen? April, okay. And if you want to turn on your microphone, all you have to do is push that button and then the light turns green. So the results were amazing. We had something like, 70, 80,000 electric customers sign up for community power in 12 cities and towns across the state. And instantly those customers were saving over $1 million a month on their combined electricity costs. Obviously, the savings for an individual were much smaller than that, but you add those 70, 80,000 customers together, the savings were immediate and huge. So with those 12 cities and towns having been in the program since April, another wave of towns, including New London, couldn't wait to join them. And so New London is part of what we're calling Wave 2, where community power launches in March. And it's very simple because with a small number of exceptions, you don't have to do anything to become part of community power. You'll be automatically transferred over from Eversource to community power, and you start saving on your very next electric bill after that switchover takes place. So the other thing, well, there are two more things that community power offers that I'm personally very excited about, and hopefully you will be too. So in addition to saving money, community power offers choice. And so you can either buy the cheapest electricity available in the state of New Hampshire, or you can specify that you want a higher content of renewable energy, like solar, wind, and hydro. And you will pay a surcharge for that, but for a lot of people, it'll make you feel good that you're contributing to the energy transition away from fossil fuels and toward renewables. So that's, so first we've got the cost savings, then we've got the choice, and then the third thing that community power offers is local control. So we're going to have in the future choices about where our electricity comes from, not just as individuals, but as a town. And if we want to put in our own community solar array, for example, we'll be able to do that under the framework of community power. It's a choice. We'll get to choose as a community whether we want to do that or not, but it's a whole new world opening up for us going forward. And there was one more thing I was going to say, but Joellen, do you have anything to add to that? And this thing, I guess, shuts off if you haven't said anything in X number of seconds.
I'm not sure what else to add. You're going to go through the program, the slides?
I don't have any slides, actually, so I just have the website.
Okay. So you might want to go through the letter. I mean, but that's...
Okay,
those
so...
slides are there. Sorry. You didn't know I was going to show up, so...
Just a few more questions I have to field, that's all. Well, I don't know. I think to keep it simple, I would like to, keep my remarks limited and spend most of my time listening to all of you rather than taking up time talking myself. I think just to go over quickly what community power means for you, we have an unusual situation. Now, Joellen, do you happen to remember what the percentage savings for Enfield customers have been over the past 9-10 months? It's been more than 10%, right?
I'm sorry.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Question. I can't answer that.
Well, I think statewide the savings for residential and small business customers have been approximately between 10 and 20% on your electric supply charge, which is the biggest chunk of your electric bill. Now, the next 6 months are kind of an anomaly for New London and other communities served by Eversource, because what happened was, over the last 6 months, we have all been overcharged by Eversource by a substantial amount. And the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission has ordered that Eversource has to refund that overcharge to all of you over the next 6 months, from February through July. So there's going to be a huge drop in the price of electricity from Eversource just for the next 6 months. So it kind of takes a little bit of the bang away from the launch of community power, because if it hadn't been for this massive refund that Eversource has to pay out, community power would be saving all of you about 15% on your electric bills. But because of the refund, for the next 6 months, you're only going to be saving 2%. So the big bang will start in the next rate period, which begins in August. And then I think you'll see substantial savings from community power. But we decided that let's get community power off the ground now, and everybody can be enrolled in it and start saving money. Because if you don't sign up now, who's going to remember 6 months from now that all of a sudden you're going to be saving a lot more. The important thing is we'll have a 2% savings for the next 6 months and probably double-digit savings after that. So that makes me happy, and I think it'll make all of you happy. So, Joellen, anything you want to add to that? Or should we start taking some questions?
Just as a reminder, everybody will be enrolled automatically, and you can choose to opt out, or you can choose to go to a higher level of green. And there are a few ways that you can do that. One is there's a telephone number, which is on your document, the letter you received. The other is the website, and the other is to send an email directly, just so that you know that, yes, you are automatically put into this program, and you can choose to drop out at any time. There is no penalty for dropping out, and there's no penalty for getting back in. Whereas if you have a different provider, not Eversource, but like a third-party supplier, you would not be automatically enrolled. And that's because your account would have been flagged as you're already receiving electric supply from someone else.
All right. Thanks, Joellen. So up on the screen at the moment, you can see a summary of the 4 different choices available from Community Power. And at the bottom, the one and only choice available from Eversource. So if you're automatically enrolled, you'll become part of the Granite Basic rate, which is 8.1 cents per kilowatt hour, which again is the lowest rate in the state of New Hampshire. And for the next 6 months, Eversource is just a little bit higher, but you're going to see those rates diverge further and further starting in August. And let me just say the reason why Community Power is the cheapest in the state is because Community Power is a nonprofit, and it's what I call a lean, mean electric machine. It's an organization with very low overhead. Joellen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have maybe 3 employees, maybe 4 or 5, but not all of them are full-time.
Right, I think we have 4 full-time, and that's as of May. This past May was the first hire, and then a few of the others happened later. So doing a lot of this stuff has been volunteer,
Okay.
which is quite amazing.
Joellen, can you lean into the mic more? Or bring it toward you? Thanks. Right, so we're an organization that not only has very low overhead, no bureaucracy, but also we have the best strategy for procuring electricity of anyone in the state. The major utilities like Eversource have a lot of bureaucracy, they've got tradition, they've got old-fashioned ways of doing things, and as a result, they pay more for the electricity they buy, and that means they have to sell it to you for more just to break even. Community Power has an innovative way of purchasing electricity that is going to save all of us a lot of money going forward. And we're going to retain a small amount of our income and build what's called a reserve fund. And that reserve fund can be used, say there's a rate spike, like what happened a couple of years ago with the Ukraine war and everything, and your electric rate suddenly tripled. Community Power will be able to dip into the reserve fund to ease the rate shock for our customers. And that's another positive that you won't see from Eversource or any other utility. So I think, Yeah, I think, why don't we open it up for questions, and could one of you keep track of whose hand goes up when, so that we can try and answer questions in order? So yes, at the front.
Can you come up to the mic, though, and just make sure, just hit the button to turn it green, and then that way we can hear you? Thanks.
So I'm Howard Hoke. When you pay the premium for the green choice, what happens to that premium? Where does it go? Is it just to cover the higher expense of the renewables?
Yes, exactly. So, so Community Power will be constantly looking at who has opted up, as we call it, to a higher percentage of renewables, and then we will go ahead and procure that somewhat more expensive power on your behalf.
And would you be going to places like Hydro-Quebec?
That's a question I can't answer.
Fair.
We have a CEO who came to us from the New Hampshire Electric Co-op, and that's basically in his wheelhouse to make decisions like that.
Fair answer. Thank you.
And hopefully he'll make decisions in all of our best interests.
May I ask another question?
Absolutely.
What are there barriers or boundaries that define small business?
A small business is just a customer who is on rate G instead of rate R. So if you look at your electric bill, there'll be a single or a double letter that says which electric rate you're on. And for probably all of us here, it'll be either an R or a G. Most of us will be Rs.
So if it's not R or G, then you're not a small business.
Then you're a medium or large business, and I believe those customers are not automatically enrolled. Is that correct?
Small businesses are, but
Right, so larger businesses might be on rate GV instead of rate G, and they would not be automatically enrolled.
they could be enrolled.
So if you're not presently using Eversource, what would be the process to switch to the community power?
Well, if you're not on the so-called Eversource default rate, if you're buying electricity from a competitive electric supplier instead, such as Direct Energy, then you have to take the initiative to switch over to community power.
Via the website or something like that?
Yeah, website, phone call, email, one of those three.
Okay, thank you.
And go ahead, Joellen.
You want to be sure that you contact the supplier so that if there are any penalties, that you're made aware of that. Any early termination fees or anything like that.
I have somebody in charge of those details.
Okay. Want to make sure.
Can I ask a follow-up question to his question?
Sure, come up to the mic.
Would you, Rob Pearl from Elkins, would you, being in a third party, would you ask to switch to Eversource for the month of February and then automatically switch, or can you go to the third party and say, put me into community power in March?
Well, I believe if you want to be automatically enrolled in community power, you'd have to get off the third-party supplier ASAP.
And just go into Eversource?
Right.
Yeah, because our bill comes in like February 9th, so we could make the change now.
Yeah. I think the other option is you'd have to contact community power and ask to be switched from the third party to community power. That would be the other way to go.
Thank you.
You bet. I guess switching to Eversource, you get in on the massive refund, at least for a month. Anybody else?
Can I just ask a question right from here, very simply?
Well, I can hear you as long as everyone else can.
The refund that Eversource is is giving or being required, is that going against the supply, or is it going against both supply and delivery?
It's strictly on supply.
That's what I figured.
And we all know that delivery is a big chunk of your electric bill. There's nothing that community power can do to affect your delivery charges because that's how Eversource makes money off all of those utility poles and the wires running between them. And community power doesn't actually own any infrastructure. We're just buying and selling the electricity, so we can only help you out with your supply charge. Yes, in the front.
Okay, so I just switched over to Eversource, hopefully so that in March, it will automatically switch to community power.
Wonderful,
If
thanks.
that doesn't happen, though, because then, because I thought I had already done it, and they said, no, we don't have a record of that happening, so supposedly it did. If I get my next bill and I'm still on that third party, I guess I would call community power.
Right.
Okay. But at any point in time, can you switch in a few months to community power? Or, I mean, what's the time frame to change to community power? Can anybody do it at any time?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Anybody can do it at any time.
Anytime, okay.
It's just good to do it when it's fresh in your mind.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And maybe I should talk briefly about the small groups of customers who are not going to be automatically enrolled in community power. So we've talked about the large commercial customers who are not automatically enrolled. We've talked about the third-party supply customers who are not automatically enrolled. And there's one other category, which actually Lisa and I both fall into because we have solar panels on our roof. So people with solar will not be automatically enrolled for the simple reason that Eversource is not cooperating with community power in allowing community power to give us credit when our solar panels are producing more than we can consume. So if we, with our solar panels on the roofs, if we switch to community power, we'd just be sending free electricity to Eversource. So obviously we won't want to do that. So Eversource is supposed to tell community power, okay, this and this customer have solar on their roof or in their backyard, so don't enroll them automatically. Now there have been some glitches in the data that Eversource has sent over to community power, and I know of at least a couple people with solar or hydro who were enrolled when they shouldn't have been. So my advice to everybody is take a close look at your electric bill, both in March and again in April. And if you want to be on community power, make sure that where it says supply charge, it says community power. If you want to be on Eversource default service because you have solar on your roof, make sure that your electric bill says your supply is coming from Eversource. And if it doesn't say what you expect it to say, make sure and pick up the phone and call.
Excuse me, I would suggest that anyone with solar, that they call and just give people the community power customer service line, your account number to make sure before the transition happens. That's the advice that we're starting to give people.
Okay. Well, that's good advice. Thanks, Joellen.
Sure.
So I guess we should be proactive, not reactive.
Right.
Yes, toward the rear.
I'll just shout here. You're actually not going to see it until an April bill, correct? Because this March bill will be for February, where you're still on Eversource. And so you're not going to actually see community power until you get an April bill.
Right.
Because that's, at that point, the month of March is when you'll actually be using it.
Exactly, and that's part of what people tend to forget, and that is that when you got a bill this month, it was for what you used previously. And then they give you like 3 weeks to pay it. So it seems like there's a lot of time in between. But you're right. So probably May is when you'd receive your bill with the new change.
Well, I don't know. My understanding was that the switchover would take place on the date that your electric meter is read in the month of March.
Correct.
Which could be anywhere from March 1st to the 31st. So then your very next bill would be the April bill, and you should be on community power as of the April bill.
Okay, so
which
if
covers from somewhere in March until somewhere in April.
Okay, so if you start on March 15th, that's when the meter is read, and then for the next meter read, that would be April 15th, and that would be on community power, but then you wouldn't get that bill until May.
No, you get the bill as soon as the meter's read.
Okay.
I mean, we get our bill in our, we get an email notification that we have a new bill, and that email notification comes either the day our meter's read or the day after.
Okay, it would be due in May.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
So you start getting the community power discount in March, it'll be reflected in your April bill, and that bill doesn't have to be paid till May. So that's the timeline.
Jamie, I'm Jerry Coogan. I want to thank you and your committee for all the work you've done for the last many years. You're saving the town of New London a lot of money, the town, and the people. So thank you. I just have a couple of points of clarification. If we sign up for community power, we're still going to get the bill from Eversource in the Eversource envelope like we've been getting in the past, correct?
That's absolutely correct. The only way you'll know you're on community power is if you look at the supply charge portion of your bill.
Okay.
Everything else will look just like a normal Eversource bill.
And where does community power buy its power from? If you have the Granite Basic.
Right. Well, it's going to be the same flavor of electricity that you'd be getting from Eversource, just at a lower price. So it's going to be the same state-mandated 24.3% renewable energy content that you would be getting from Eversource.
So we're basically buying power from Eversource, but under the community power banner, so to speak.
Well, not exactly, because Eversource is not a generation utility. They don't produce any electricity. They only do transmission and distribution. So they're buying electricity on the open market, just like buying stocks on the stock market.
Right.
And they may be buying from the exact same suppliers that Community Power is.
Right.
The big names like NextEra and Exelon and Constellation. But because Community Power times its power purchases when the market is down, we're always getting our power for cheaper, even if it's from the same generating facilities.
So community power is going to watch the market hour by hour to get the best deal for the people.
Exactly.
They're doing, it's a portfolio management type thing,
Yeah,
purchasing, whereas the utilities only go out twice a year
right.
for purchasing, and then they're locked in for that amount of time.
So instead of doing that, you're doing it hour by hour, day by day in terms of your power purchases,
Pretty much, yeah.
as opposed to 6 months to 6 months. If people want to think about it, can they sign up in a year or two later for community power?
rather than right now.
I mean, can they, some people may not want to do it today, but can they do it in a year from now or 2 years from now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But what we've seen so far in the 12 cities and towns that have been in the program since last spring, we have something like 98% participation.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Yes, in the rear.
So,
That means he needs to opt out, though. If he doesn't want to start now, because he's going to be automatically.
if Community Power is buying on the spot market, per se, is it possible, I would imagine it's possible for them to sometimes be paying more than Eversource might be paying in their long-term contracts. So is there any way to avoid that?
Well, actually, Community Power rarely, if ever, buys on the spot market because you're correct, the spot market is usually higher than buying what you might call futures. So Community Power enters into contracts to buy power anywhere from a month ahead of time to 3 years ahead of time, depending on which way is cheaper. Obviously, we don't want to buy all our power 3 years ahead of time because it's hard to predict who's going to want that power 3 years from now. But a certain percentage is bought that far ahead, and the rest is hedged, so to speak, by buying it not so far in the distant future. So we have a mix that not only minimizes the downside risk, but also maximizes the savings.
Okay, and Eversource also, I think they still do this, there was a winter rate and a summer rate. So the rate would change depending on, presumably that had something to do with the cost of generation or the cost of the power that they were buying at different times of the year. Obviously, it went up in the winter and came down in the summer. The way you're talking about purchasing it, it's level. There wouldn't be this differential between seasons in terms of how the power is being purchased.
Well, it's not quite that simple. First of all, the Eversource buys their power in a specific way that's dictated by the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission. And the rate periods are not specifically summer or winter, but there's a February through July rate and then an August through January rate. And in past years, the February through July rate was typically higher than the August through January rate. But then once, major energy shocks like the Ukraine war came into the picture, energy rates stopped following the seasons and they started responding more to geopolitical concerns. So we're now at the point where the February through July rate is going to be substantially lower for everyone than the August through January rate that we're just coming off of, which is the opposite of what you'd expect. But the reason for this is that things are just getting back to normal following the massive energy shock of the Ukraine war. Yes, in the front.
Well, all right, so how long, okay, we're getting this 8.1, cent. How long is that going to last? How often does the rate change?
Well, as you can see up there on the screen, if it's not too fine of a print, it's the beginning of February through the end of July is the rate that's about to kick in, the 8.1 cents. And then starting August 1st, there will be a new rate. And I can't tell you, because I don't have a crystal ball, I can't tell you whether the new rate's going to be higher or lower than the current rate. All I can assure you is that the new community power rate is going to be lower than the new Eversource rate when they take effect in August. If I had to guess, I'd say there'd be a double-digit differential between community power and Eversource starting in August, but don't quote me on that.
Then you shouldn't have said it. I'm sorry, I just said, then you shouldn't have said it. There was somebody had their hand up.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
A lot of this, Sue DeLuca, a lot of this is Greek to me, but you're talking about just the supply side.
Correct.
So we still have Eversource for the delivery side.
That's correct.
God forbid we have an ice storm, because we do have them here. So if all of a sudden delivery is a problem, the supply could be down, but the delivery could go up, and we're still going to have a big electric bill. Is there a problem if we go to the nonprofit to get the better supply price, but because they're taking care of the delivery price, the overall balance is you're still going to have a high electric bill based on the services that we need in this area for the climate we deal with? That's number one. Number two.
I don't know if I can remember two questions.
Okay,
So
in other words.
can I answer one question first and then
Go
you
for
can
it.
ask the second one?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm proud to say that Lisa's son-in-law works for Eversource, and he's out 24/7 sometimes repairing storm damage.
Absolutely.
So you're in about as good hands as you can possibly be. But the cost of electricity, particularly the delivery charge, is very high in New Hampshire because we're largely a rural state. There's long distances from one house to another instead of, big apartment buildings cheek by jowl. So there's miles and miles of utility poles and wires and way too many trees because New Hampshire is the second most forested state in the nation. So the combination of many miles of wires and too many trees means that we have a lot of outages and a lot of high costs of repairing and maintaining the lines. And there's not much that community power can do about that, and there's not much that any of us could do about it except to cut the wires and go off the grid.
Okay, that's good. And I totally agree, having come from another state that didn't take care of their power lines, we're very happy with the way New Hampshire takes care of the power lines and the trees. Okay, so the next part of the question is, yes, you could go down on price for supply, but that doesn't mean your overall electric bill is going to go down. I don't know if I'm not understanding it or your selling point is that your electric bill is going to go down. Because the other question I have is, are we trying to buy more renewable energy, and do we have enough renewable energy to sustain the electricity that we need?
Well, let's see. I can't speak for New Hampshire necessarily, but if you look at other states in the nation, there are just gigantic quantities of renewable energy being produced in states like Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska. Now, you're not necessarily going to get any of those electrons because you can't transmit electricity through 1,000 or 2,000 miles of wire without losing most of it into the air. But we do have offshore wind coming online in the near future. particularly off the coast of Cape Cod, where there are several projects under construction. And there's large quantities of hydroelectric power in the Northeast.
But are we trying to focus as this unit hoping to get the renewable energy so it's cheaper to add to this process?
Well, the long-term goal of community power is to either construct or provide incentives for the construction of more renewable energy facilities within reach of New Hampshire, so that hopefully someday in the future, while all of us are still around, we can get to the point where all of our electricity is 100% renewable and it's still cheaper than Eversource.
That's all well and good, but just for comment, any of the studies I've ever read, renewable energy is not going to be sufficient to provide for the energy that's needed in the northeast part of the United States. And I totally agree with Arizona, Texas, and places like that with the sunshine and the wind power in California and whatnot. But I'm afraid I don't see it for New Hampshire, but I appreciate your efforts.
Ma'am, there was something I wanted to say, and that was that the distribution is about 50% of your bill, and the supply is about 50%. And so we're only talking about the supply side here.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Right, and I guess I should add that the delivery charges or distribution charges are strictly controlled by the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission. Every rate increase that Eversource asks for, they have to justify it, and the Public Utilities Commission, the PUC, has veto power over those rate increases, so they have to be really well justified before you will see your delivery charges go up at all. So, you know, I can't say how those charges are going to track in the future, but it's pretty clear that the increases in the delivery charges have been pretty modest compared to the increases over the past few years in the supply charge. So it's the supply charge that we really want to get under control so that it's not swinging wildly up and down, and that way we can have an easier time budgeting to pay for our electric bills, whether we're a residence or a business, or one of each. Yes?
Is there a button? Okay. Patrina Markowitz. So this may be a stupid question, but what's the relationship between Community Power and Eversource, meaning Community Power buys our electricity? How do they get it to Eversource to get it to us? Or is that just an accounting function between the two companies?
Well, the Eversource maintains the grid, which is all the wires that run from one utility pole to the next. And those wires can't tell whose electricity is being transmitted through the wires, because all the electrons look the same by the time they get into Eversource's grid. So it's, it's really just who the electricity is going to be generated somewhere over there, and the Eversource grid is just used to move the electricity from over there to each and every one of our houses or businesses.
And does Eversource charge Community Power to allow Community Power to access their grid?
Well, Eversource charges everyone. So if you buy your electricity from Direct Energy, for example, which is a third-party supplier, then Eversource tacks on their delivery charge. So strictly speaking, Eversource is not sending a bill to Direct Energy or to Community Power. They're just levying the delivery charge and adding it to your bill.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, you bet.
Bill Partridge, thank you for all your work. We appreciate it. A year ago, I bought Direct Energy. It was cheaper than the Eversource rate. Now I see this Eversource rate that's 8.28. Is that currently the rate that's out there for Eversource? Did they lower to that, or is that a special rate that your coalition has got?
That'll start tomorrow, February 1st.
For everybody or just
Yes.
for everyone?
Everyone.
Okay. So,
Well, everyone who's on Eversource default service will get the it's approximately 8.3 cents.
yeah, okay.
And then, starting in March, everyone who's enrolled in Community Power will see it drop again down to 8.1 cents.
Could I have bought a year ago from Granite Basic? I didn't even know they existed, so
You have to go through, that's,
that's through the coalition.
yeah, and that's why Jamie's been working on this for a long time to try to get it to a point where it can start. And this is the kickoff. It will be starting.
But I've heard you say already that if Eversource will never go, even in 6 months when they readjust, they still won't go lower than the coalition, than the Granite Basic. Is that correct?
That's our belief, yes. And that's our reason for existing.
Exactly. Okay.
So it's our number one job is to use smart purchasing strategies to keep our electricity cost lower than Eversource and lower than all of the other utilities in New Hampshire as well.
Does Granite Basic charge everyone in the state that particular rate? No, that's just through the coalition, right?
Right, so it's only the cities and towns that have joined the coalition and become members and executed the agreements that allow them to launch this service.
Thank you.
So I might add that we have, the coalition has had 12 cities and towns since last April, well, approximately, and we're about to get 10 more. And there are probably 30 or 40 more cities and towns in the pipeline that hopefully will be launching sometime over the next year. And so the membership of the coalition right now represents approximately 30% of the population of New Hampshire. And it's inching up month by month. And we have, the coalition has not only several dozen cities and towns that are members, but also Merrimack County and Cheshire County are members. So that will make it easier for other towns in those two counties to launch their community power in the future as well. But here in New London, we didn't want to wait for that, so we joined as a town instead of waiting for Merrimack County to act. And that's allowing us to launch sooner. Okay, I see two questions in the back.
Hi, Jamie. I had a question on page 2 of the brochure we all got. It says Eversource Class CV ratio in March is 12.06, and the Community Power Granite Basic is 8.3, and then it goes across till July at 11.6, and then 7.9 for Community Power. Are those the set rates that Eversource has set for that 6-month period through August 1st?
Well, those are, that's a comparison for medium and large businesses. not for residences or small businesses.
Okay?
And again, there's an anomaly here because my understanding is that Eversource was found to be undercharging
Right.
these medium and large businesses. So for the next 6 months, there's a surcharge on those businesses, which makes Community Power look way, way better. But again, that's just a temporary phenomenon.
Right, so assuming that continues, August 1, in the event for residences, in the event that Eversource would lower their supply rates, if they were offering that, we could change back to Eversource in August, is that correct?
Well, yeah, if the worst case happens and somehow Community Power ends up being more expensive than Eversource, you can switch back to Eversource anytime you want. But personally, I don't see that happening.
Right.
And even if Community Power got stuck paying too much for electricity, we could use our reserve fund to subsidize our rate.
Right, no, I'm just asking in the event, based on the prior questions, it still gives everyone in the room and outside the room the opportunity to move back and go back to Eversource in the event that the analysis by the CEO of Community Power didn't turn out correctly, or his buying power wasn't the less than Eversource, that we have that opportunity.
Right. So, yeah, I think the only restriction is you can only switch back and forth once a month.
That's a pretty good opportunity before the reading. On this card that you passed us out, there's, I think you mentioned 12, but there's 9. Probably this was printed before the other 3. But there's 9 that have signed up for Community Power Coalition. And on the card, there's 26 that are pending. What effect will that have? That is the 26 that join, hopefully will join, on your buying power.
I'm expecting it will make it better.
Well, it certainly won't be worse.
Right, but again, they are timed. It's not like they can just come in when they
Right.
choose to. So they're, the communities that are coming on board now are coming in as a bulk. So that's purchasing their power is being taken into consideration with this rate. But the others will be coming in waves. That's what we've been calling.
Do they come in on a quarterly basis, or what's the?
It's been erratic. We came on, like 12 of us came on in April of last year, and then there were 2 communities that came on in the fall. So that brought it up to 14. And now with the, you said 10? I thought it was 12 that were coming on board
12.
in March. So that brings it up higher.
Right, so it's yeah, it looks like it's 9 communities joining as individual communities, and then 3 others joining under the umbrella of Cheshire County,
Right.
making a total of 12.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to add before the next question that we did, when we first started in April, Community Power had some big names and heavy hitters like Nashua, the second largest city in the state, was one of the original cities to join, and Dover and Lebanon were quite sizable as well. We're now reaching out and enrolling some of the smaller communities, some with fewer than 1,000 residents. So we're going to be growing in terms of the number of communities, maybe faster than we grow in terms of population. But I just heard that Concord, the city of Concord, had decided to join the coalition, so that's going to be a big boost in terms of customer base. So go ahead.
Well, it sounds like we have winners and losers here, and the losers are going to be Eversource. They've been a very reliable carrier for us for a long time. With all these communities joining in, is there going to be a massive attack on Eversource?
Well, I think you're misunderstanding the situation, because it's a little more complicated than that. Since electricity was deregulated in New Hampshire, Eversource no longer owns any generating facilities. They're just a transmission and distribution network, and they do not make a penny off the supply charge that they collect. They buy the electricity, they deliver it to you if you're on so-called default service, and the supply rate you pay to Eversource is just enough to cover their cost. So it makes no difference to their bottom line whether you're buying from Community Power or Direct Energy or Eversource Default. Where Eversource makes their money is on delivery. And that's the only way they make their money. And we're all helping make a profit for Eversource through the delivery charges we pay, regardless of who our supplier is. Does that all make sense?
It makes sense, thank you.
Okay. Thanks for asking. Yes.
Mark Clement, I have a simple, easy question for you, I believe. So my wife and I, we're going to join. We'll be on the Granite Basic. If after 4 or 5 months we find out we're saving a significant amount of money, we can easily then switch to, and we want to be more renewable sensitive, we can easily switch to Granite Plus or Granite 50, or is it just a matter of making a phone call?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. A phone call, or go on the website, or probably even send an email.
Okay, so there's no restrictions in terms of once a
No.
quarter, you can do that anytime?
No, yes.
Right, absolutely.
Thank you.
It's all about choices.
So
Yes, go ahead.
What I really want to ask is, I want some advice. So, I don't mind sharing, for probably the last 10 years, I've always used a third party. Usually I get a very low rate, no more than 10 cents. But what's really good about it is that it's guaranteed, if you're careful about what you do and your research, it's 36 months. Okay? So for 3 years, I can depend on that rate. Okay? Now, one of the things that troubles me with this is that rate that you're currently showing, now I don't really honestly believe what I'm about to say, but I look at that rate, and I also then look at Eversource rates, but I realize that Eversource rate is really because of the refund. It's not really what they want to charge. So I worry that the rate that you've set at 8.1 really ought to be a little higher. And when Eversource's rate does begin to really skyrocket in August, I think I wouldn't be surprised if the 8.1 doesn't go up, okay? But, okay, the thing that I'm really looking for advice is, if you've been, like I have for a long time with my supply, okay, of always being sure that it was a relatively low rate for a long period of time. This rate is not going to be that way. Every 6 months, it's going to change. So if you were in my position, right, would you really say, oh no, it's 8.1 or 8.3 or 8, it's going to stay, say, below 10 cents for a long time? What would you say?
I would say that whatever makes you feel okay about going to sleep at night. And if it worries you, then do what eliminates the worry. There's no way to know the future, seriously. But if it's a concern, then act on your concern.
And I'd just like to follow up and say that a lot of people are thinking along the lines you are. You've really hit on a very good point. And one of the things that Community Power is planning to do in the future, hopefully soon, is offer not just a 6-month rate, but also a 12-month rate and a 24-month rate. I'm not sure when those are going to be available, but for people who like to be able to sleep at night, knowing that their bill isn't going to start going through the roof in 6 months, it may be very attractive. And I should go on to say a little bit about the town of New London, because the town of New London has approximately 24 municipal electric meters for everything from this building to the sewer pumping stations. And so we keep a close eye on the town's electric budget and how the town of New London buys its electricity. So for the past 4 years, the town of New London has been on a long-term contract that was in effect for 4 whole years. It just ran out in November, and the third-party supplier that the town has been using for years offered us a new contract, and the new contract was not only higher than Community Power, it was way higher than Eversource as well. So the town of New London is no longer on a long-term contract because the contracts that we were offered just weren't attractive. So all of the town's electric meters are going to be switching over to Community Power in March, along with yours in all likelihood. And the thing is, we're going to keep an eye on things as often as possible, because if it so happens that a competitive third-party supplier offers us an attractive contract, the town of New London will go back on third-party supply. But right now, Community Power is the best deal going in the whole state that we're able to find. So we're going to be on Community Power for Whipple Hall, the sewer pumping stations, the police, fire department, you name it. So, anybody else? I think we might have run out of questions. So, I just wanted to say before you all go, first of all, thank you so much for coming once again. And second, Joe Ellen passed around a clipboard, and if any of you are interested in staying in touch with the Energy Committee, asking us questions, coming to meetings, or helping us save energy and save money for the town of New London, feel free to put your name and email or phone number on the clipboard, and we'll do our best to stay in touch. And that's all I have to say, but again, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you all.